that we're live streamed.
Okay, so welcome everybody in this, for us, early morning. Normally we have these live conversations at 5 o'clock in the afternoon CET, so Central European time. But because we have these beautiful ladies from New Zealand with a fantastic story, we wanted them to join us and not in the middle of their night. So we moved to 9 o'clock in the morning. So welcome everyone who is watching us on Zoom or on Facebook, and later who's listening to us on podcast or watching us on YouTube. So welcome everyone, those who are over 50 and everyone else who's interested to know more about this Wize generation. This online conversation is hosted by the Wise Move Society, the online community for everyone who is over 50 and all those who would love to join us. So during our summits, Boomer or Bloomer, what's next? In April, we experienced again that this generation is growing by the day. We're living longer, are longer healthy and active, and are better educated than ever. This generation is not on their way out. We're part of the future. And it was again a huge wake-up call that this generation will impact in many ways our society, our economy, the workplace, our healthcare system, and so much more in the years to come. So with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wise Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and the opportunities that the over 50 are facing, as well as how the members of the Wise Move community work together to create solutions and play an active role in society and the economy. So for those who join us on Zoom, again, we love you to contribute to the conversation, and we will introduce you, during the whole live conversation. If you join us on Facebook, please share your feedback and questions in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, just send us your questions and we will respond. So my name is Ingun Bol. I'm the creator of the Wise Move Society, and I'm here today with my guest, Gillian Eadie and Dr. Jian Guan from New Zealand. So Gillian is the founder and CEO of the Memory.Foundation and Brainfit Academy and the CEO of Brainfit Limited. And Dr. Jian Guan, Associate Professor and Brainfit's Chief Scientist. And the topic of today's conversation is how to boost your memory and your brain. So before we do that, I would like to give these wonderful ladies the stage. So Gillian, I think you're going to start. We would like to learn more about you, and then Jian will take over. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ingun. And it's such a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to you about the kinds of things we're doing now. A little bit about me, about my background. Most of my career has been in schools, in compulsory education, and I began my professional career as a speech therapist, or speech pathologist, as people often call it in America. And I was a teacher for a number of years, and then the last 20 years of my career, I was the headmistress or principal of 3 different schools, and then ended my career at the University of Auckland. During that time, I've always been interested in how young people think and what is it that, what are the pathways to answers and how do they solve problems? So I've spent a lot of time in classrooms with young people, seeking out ways in which they can approach problems before they give up, because I think Art Costa said that intelligence is what you do when you don't know the answer to something. So the thinking skills courses that I ran were basically giving young people strategies for problem solving. And interestingly enough, during that time, my sister Alison, Dr. Alison Lamont, was also researching not young people, but or not only young people. Her study was age-related memory loss across the lifespan. And that PhD research was published in 2006. At that time, I was still headmistress of a school in Wellington, but nearing retirement and beginning to notice the sorts of memory letdowns that are very annoying, and they're all very typical for people who are over 50, over 60 and beyond. Little things like not being able to remember a name instantaneously, not always recognizing a face immediately, and just not being quite as quick off the mark as I used to be. And when I found out about Alison's research, where she identified that there were 6 key memory skills that people needed if they were going to live independently in older age, I thought, well, I need to know what those 6 key skills are. And so Alison and I, although we were living in different cities and hadn't lived in the same cities for 40 years, we began to work together. And that's really where Brainfit and the Memory.Foundation came from. So these 6 skills, or 6 key skills, there are about 49 skills in cognition. So, there are lots, but the 6 key ones that she identified were verbal memory, nothing to do with words, non-verbal memory, so the kinds of understanding pictures and maps and diagrams and even music and art, and short-term memory, the number of items you can hold in your memory at any one time, working memory, which is the executive function of the brain that allows you to plan and process and retain information, and prospective memory, remembering to remember, so that you know today something that you need to do next week and that you retain that in your memory. And then you wouldn't think that when you were getting older that you might not recognize faces, but actually face recognition was her 6th key memory skill. And as you realize that without any one of those, somebody is looking after you. So all of our focus has been on strengthening those 6 key skills. So what do we do to strengthen them? Well, let me give you a little example. Here's a number. I'm just going to show it to you for a few seconds. Okay, now I'm going to put it away. I hope you didn't write it down. We'll just leave it at that. And the sorry, the little piece I'm going to be. What we do, all of the resources that we've built together, our brain training programs, our resources, our ebooks, our neuro games, all of them are based on strengthening one of those 6 key skills. And Alison and I ourselves began taking the classes with people who were interested in retaining memory confidence and productivity and independence. And then we found that the demand was so strong that we actually couldn't do it ourselves all the time. So we began to train coaches, Brainfit coaches, who are operating in their own communities. So that's been such an exciting development for us. Most of them so far are in New Zealand, but we have our first 2 coaches in the United States, and we're hoping that we're going to get more coaches internationally because it's such a good program, and people are finding that the strategies they learn, which are very simple, very accessible language, very easy to do, but they've been life-changing in the way people remember information and the way people can respond to and interpret the environment around them. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I want to talk about that later with Ingun, perhaps about some of the coaches who are working in the community and the training that they've done and how they've gone about it. They train online. So we have all of what we want our coaches to learn about memory, about the brain, and about the business of running your own Brainfit coaching business. So there are 3 sections in the coaching, and it can be done in your own time online when you have time. So it's very flexible. And that's what our coaches have enjoyed, because they can run the classes in their own time to suit the life skills that or the life circumstances in which they find themselves. Well, that's just about all I want to say as a matter of introduction. But I would neuroscience, the discoveries and the discovery of that word neuroplasticity has only been in the language for about 20 years. So I grew up not even knowing that it was possible for seniors like me to be able to develop and grow and strengthen our cognitive reserve as we were getting older. I didn't know that. But we have the right person with us to tell us more about some of those discoveries and what's happening in the brain and why it's so important for people as they're getting older. Jian, I'd like to hand over to you.
Well, thank you. I would like to thanks for the opportunity to meet you all. I coming from China, but I've been living in New Zealand, working in New Zealand for more than 30 years. I was trained in the medicine. Before I come to New Zealand, I was working after I finished medical school. I become a pediatrician and eventually a neonatologist. And one specialized area I was working on is a baby born with, brain damage due to either long-term asphyxia as a fetus or during the birth. So that's my interest. So I start doing some research as part of the specialization in this area. So I end up in New Zealand with Ligon's Institute. Ligon's Institute is a research focused on the perinatal area. And I was coming to New Zealand doing 1 year like a fellowship training. End up, this is my 34th year. So, and again, that's how I get me into the research, neuroscientist research, how I have moved from one lifespan to another end, means to the newborn, to the aging. For me, they are very similar process actually, just like a reverse the process. I don't know whether you watched the movie called Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Talking about
right.
how, yes. When I watch this movie, I was my very special interest and just so, so right. During the brain development and during brain aging, it's just opposite process, going to, but very similar. So I've been doing become a scientist, give up clinical practice and become a scientist and focus on neuroscience and to start with as the brain damage caused by stroke in the on the old people, and gradually I start focus on aging, how brain aging, what's happened when we, what's the mechanism, what's the cause, make us lose our memory, our gradually lose the thinking power, planning power, like exactly Alison and Gillian was studied. So during the last 30 years of study, what I found, the circulation, when we're old, the first thing we lost is circulation. Especially the circulation provide nutrients to the organs, we call it microcirculation. And those vessels, we call them capillaries. These are vessels supply the nutrients to the organ. At the same time, they take a metabolic waste away from the organ. So they are the one is endangered. We lost lots of them from very early on, from middle age. So one of my studies, because I found that, and then also, if we can find some intervention or prevention is much easier if you want to improve your circulation, make more blood vessels. Is much easier instead of you have to make the drug go across the blood-brain barrier and go to the neurons. It's much easier. So that's why I have been focused to study how vascular, lots of vasculature, and lots of vascular function affecting our brain function when we're old. The blood vessels is it's quite simple. The blood vessels, just like a hair, like a skin cells, they constantly renew themselves. However, when we're old, ability, we got wrinkles, we got gray hair, the same thing. Ability to regrow those small vessels also lost. So that's why the neurons, they are very tough. Those we call it, in the brain we have a glial cells, we have neurons, the neurons are functional cells. They are very tough. We from early on, we found those group cells, they are not regenerating themselves. So we're born with trillions, we deal with trillions, we live with trillions until we die. The reason is not because God made a mistake. The reason is we don't need any new cells. We don't need it. So those cells, they don't die when they are not working because they short of nutrients. The blood vessel didn't work, there's not enough nutrients to supply, so they are resting, they are not working. Actually, they are not dying. But when you have a good supply, you rebuild your vascular network, those cells start working again. That's how amazing it is. So that's the area I have been focused on in my last 20 years of research. And then I also very interested in public knowledge, public education on, it's a very, the research and the research lab within the university, within the research institute, going on and on, lots of happening, but how much those knowledge has been, this research be supported by the society, but how much those knowledge has been going back to people, which people desperately need to know. Very small amount, very small. And so I did start running those public lectures, and through some, I get invited. I'm quite happy, the time before COVID, I can go to, in every single lectures, it got hundreds of people, fill it up. People like to hear what's happening, right? And they notice themselves, they forget things, become a forgetful. We call, but they want to know. But however, there's very little chance for scientists to provide those knowledge, what they learned from the research. That's where I meet Gillian, in one of my lectures.
Yeah.
And then that's why I'm quite supportive and interesting what Gillian and Alison's doing. It's just like a bridging what's happened in the research institute, what knowledge has been generated, and how this knowledge can benefit to society. The loss of vasculature is not just aging, and also to do with aging related conditions like metabolic syndromes and diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is main pathology is poor vascular circulation, microcirculation. That's why people losing their limbs, because they lose their blood circulation, why people lose their sight, why people lose their sensation and the kidney function. It's very, very simple. Again, I'm from clinical background. I think I've been trained as a clinician you have to able to, you learn how to look at things from a big picture rather than just one specific point. So I think the also, you know, like now I'm involved, I'm still affiliated with University of Auckland Pharmacology Department. At the same time, I'm working for a company that you call CGP Max company, because this company pick up my research results and try to make a benefit to people, and which has going quite well. You know, during last 20, 30 years, my research, I've been involved in pharmaceutical development. And the pharmaceutical, there's a lot of, from what I understand, what my experience is hard work, find out good science in lots of different ways. Lots of different ways. Yes, so I think, you know, especially what I studied, simple information, circulation. If you improve your circulation, go for a walk, go for exercise, eat something which was, you know, healthy, control your sugar levels, and your circulation is going to improve. Once your circulation improved, your overall health, including your brain health. That's it. You know, compared to the limbs, we can see, you know, type 2 diabetes, when what we can see is how you lose your sensation, your fingers, your toes, and your eyesight, your kidney, but something else you can't see is our brain. In comparison, the brain is the most vasculature rich organ, the most vasculature rich organ. It's weight about body weight, about 1 to 2% of body weight, or depends on how tall, how small you are, but it consumes more than 35% of energy.
Yeah.
So when something happened to your body, you lose your circulation, and what happened to your in the brain is dramatic. It's dramatic. Those functional cells we call neurons, they are very tough, very strong. They try to work by working hard as possible until and eventually they give up. So if we, you know, to understand how to improve the circulation, simple, you go for a walk every day, exercise, eating well, you keep your circulation well, and then you function, your all organ function better, including your brain function better too.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to stop you here because I think you can talk for hours about this, and that is really fantastic. Thank you both ladies. It was really, you know, I love your, you know, that already that journey. You know, Gillian, you're coming from that teacher's background, schooling, and, you know, the young ones, how they learn and things like that. And really working with your sister and asking yourselves how things are doing and what, you know, how this improves, because that was, you know, not really what you have been doing during your, what can I say, working career? Well, it didn't stop. So
this is my retirement. Yes.
Your former career, yeah. And then with Jian as well, you know, you start as the pediatrician, you start in neonatology, and, you know, you're really working with these newborns, and now you're working with the aging and wondering what is happening in between and how can we do this better? How can we improve this? So I love that journey already, what you have been doing so far. Really fantastic, ladies. So I'm always very...
Before we start,
yes,
I just realized, what about those numbers? Who can remember what the numbers were?
Well, there was a 5, a 7, and a 3, and a Nicolette.
Lily, what were the numbers?
I think 50, it was but it's 52, 87, 393. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I did couples.
Oh, wow.
Well done. You know, in a way, that's...
Sorry, Nicolette.
That's all right. No worry.
That's an example of the very simple strategies that we use in our training because to be able to remember that, and you retained that, and I presume you didn't write them down in front of you, but you retained them, and your working memory was working very hard to hold that information there. And you may have used association, you might have used repetition, but you would definitely have paid attention, which is a secret to retaining memory, or to retaining information so that you can encode it into the long-term memory. But you held it in the short-term memory for long enough, and you created your own memory traces. I mean, isn't the brain amazing? Because this is, 10 minutes beyond having seen those numbers. I only held them up for a few seconds, and you remembered them. Isn't the brain amazing? Astonishing. Well done. Carry on, Ingun. I'm sorry I interrupted.
It was fantastic. And, you know, I was so focused on, I really need to know what they're talking about, because I have to ask the first questions. And then I was like, the first 2 minutes, I was like, it's 52:78, 52:78. And then I thought, forget about it. I need to listen to what they're saying. But yes, it is. It's really wonderful. And, you know, we learn more and more about it, because also one of the experts on our Wize Society, Eugene, is a neuroscientist. And we had a masterclass last week from him, and learning also about the learning process. You know, it's not only about changing your habits, but it's really learning new habits. You cannot really change what you're doing in the maps and all these things that he was sharing with us. So it was quite different from what you're sharing right now, because that is absolutely something I love. There's two aspects that I hear right now. I hear, of course, about what you have designed to improve that brain again and to keep it fit and healthy. That's one. The other thing is, and that is something that, you know, the coaches are doing, but then there's also the aspect of you know, the whole circular system, the vessels, the you know, all these things we need to keep healthy, and how can we get those nutritions to our cells and our brains, and that is, of course, also very important. And you already named a few of the things that we can do. For us, that is very important. If we are talking to this over 50 generation, and of course, we have done some things in the past that would not contribute to a healthy brain. So we need to work on that. And healthy aging also at the Wize Society is very important. So I love to talk about both these things. I love to talk about how can we keep that system healthy in a way that we eat well and exercise. So I'm coming back to that, but I also would love to hear, and you know, whoever is more experienced on that, what exactly is what you are doing with the people who you want to keep their brain fit, and to keep it to make it active again, and you know, that part. So well, whoever, what is so special about what you're doing with the coaches, the work that they're doing?
Well, perhaps I'll start anyway. Our focus is on the 6 key skills. Now, there are lots of people who are interested in the brain, and you only have to go onto the internet and you'll find all sorts of people offering all sorts of programs. But our focus has been totally on the 6 key skills, because we realized that they were the ones, if we were going to keep people independent, keep them out of care, keep them out of rest homes, then people want to live their own lives. They don't you know, they've spent their whole life earning money and making their own decisions. They don't want to suddenly have those taken out of their hands. They want to be able to be in charge of their own lives for as long as possible. So because Alison identified those 6 key skills, they're the ones that have been the basis for everything. So the exercises that we do for verbal memory or non-verbal memory, short-term memory, each one of those are structured, but they're simple to do. They're it's not rocket science. So it's not as if it's not like a university course, because we realize that the people coming to our classes, sometimes their memories of school and learning have been pretty awful, or they can remember failing in the past and they're a bit frightened of being shown up or wanting in a group. So we've spent a lot of time making the environment in which people are learning really comforting, supportive, and a lot of fun, really. And the focus has been on using strategies for strengthening each one of those skills. So I know part of the course that we do, we have one slide that originates with Jian's lecture that I went to, one of her early lectures that I went to, about the 4 aspects of why the brain ages, 4 big groups of reasons. One of them was having an active lifestyle and not having energy and keeping going. And another was lack of mental exercise. So lack of physical activity, lack of mental activity, and having physical complaints like obesity or some type 2 diabetes, or as Jian mentioned, the whole range of medical things that will impact, and a poor diet. And at that stage, and it might have changed, but at that stage, Jian told us that we can't change our hormones. So the hormonal changes are still going to happen to us whether we like it or not. But maybe that will be changing in the future too. Would you add to that, Jian?
Yes, a hormone, there's something happen when we're old. The menopause. Actually, men have a menopause too. We lose hormones. Once we lose hormones, the human is only one have post-menopause life. Any other species, they die after they stop reproduce. So we are being kept alive, but with lots of discomfort because we don't have enough hormone. The one hormone I've been studied called insulin, like growth factor 1. I've been studied this hormone inside out. In the last 30 years, yes. Yeah, they all link, all the hormone linked together, the male hormone, everything linked together. So this is
but they are going to age us. We can't change them at this stage.
I think the hormone replacement is not recommended because the hormone is, we always know hormone are double-edged swords. So if you have a hormone replacement, there's always have something underneath will hurt you in the different ways, right? Yeah. The the CGP Max, the company will work with, is the CGP is a little molecule. There's a molecule I've been studied as which can modulate your hormone, which means if your hormone's low, IGF is low, they bring it up to normal. But if it's normal, they won't do anything else. They won't do anything to change your hormone. Yeah.
No, we're still going to get older.
Yeah, and then when you're getting older, but our body is amazing. We can learn to living with the low level hormone for quite a long period of time. Quite a long. There's something you can't change, but our body learn how to living with that. So you can live with a low hormone level for quite a long period of time. And if you physically active, mentally active, eating well, make sure you don't have a diabetes, those age-related metabolic problems. I think you can live quite comfortably in your 60s and probably late 60s. But after that, you probably need some help from outside. When you in your 70s and 80s, even 90s. Yeah. So we do so education is a positive correlated with their mental function. Education. And what that means you have to keep learning. People more educated, they know how to learn themselves, continue, they know how important, and they have a habit to continue self-educate. So it means you keep your mental active. You don't have to self-educate to do another degree. You basically can learn photographer, to learn some art, to And then also
Language.
women,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
women living longer, just manage, like a manager, your household. There's some, we call cognitions, every day different. What do you cook? What do you eat? This kind of thing is very good exercise. Keep you going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank
So the
you.
mental exercise is where we come in. Yeah, we're very very focused on encouraging all of the people in our community that they are finding something brain challenging to do every day. So something that's pushing themselves out of the comfort zone. So they have to try really hard to do something new, something different.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, fantastic. Okay, ladies, I see already that there's a lot happening here in the chat. Anyhow, Nicolette is one of the thought leaders at the Wise Move Society. And she's already typing a lot in the chat. And since I'm not really the chat kind of a girl, I'm asking her to share what you have been sharing in the chat.
Yeah, I've had two things. First of all, for Jian, so quite an interesting fact, my father had very bad veins. I actually inherited them, unfortunately, but he had also a lot of aneurysms. He was not mobile. He did cycle, but walking, he could hardly do that. But until he passed away, he had the sharpest brain on earth. So I was wondering, is there also something to do with the genetic makeup, or is it all about how we feed or how we have our circulation? Because with him, we had the worst circulation, as example.
The brain aneurysm is like a disease. It's not like how do you know he's the worst circulation in the brain?
Because he also had a blood pressure, and he had those stockings, and one of the aneurysms were in his legs.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, people have a high blood pressure would affect him. There's a very individualized, if he hasn't got high blood pressure, if he hasn't got aneurysm, he probably even better. And also he probably does a lot. You said he's a cycle a lot. There's lots of exercise, right? The exercise is very important for the circulation. So if you very simple example, if you tidy your fingers with a thread and it become a purple, right? But if you keep and you release, the purple disappear. But if you keep doing it every day, and then they stop being purple. The reason is because when there's a purple, there's a signal sent to your body. There's not enough circulation, right? Because there's lack of circulation, and eventually you lose this kind of purpleness. Mean they have a new vessel rebuilt.
I know.
Yeah. So when people doing the exercise, like those physical exercise, doesn't really matter what you do. And then one stage, you almost feel you lose off oxygen, you start puffing, and but when you exercise to this stage, your body sends the signal to your brain, have to make more vessels, or another organ, lung, to make more vessels, or your muscles to make more vessels. So exercise is a really good way to maintain the good circulation. And another thing is I'll talk about this, the smaller is the blood vessels, which is important to supply the oxygen nutrients to the organ, the smaller is the ones. The hypertension is mainly involved the large vessels, like hardened vessels, vessel function, or heart function. Yeah, I think your father exercise would have helped him a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing you were talking about, if I'm correct, but and I want to check with you, you are not recommending HRT therapies, hormone replacement therapy, because that's what I noticed in this country. I've got a friend, she has no issues, but gynecologists say no, every woman should have them. I don't have them, but I was thinking, why is that?
I'm not a gynecologist. I'm not a gynecologist. So the hormone replacement for estrogen has been on for a long time, a long time ago. It's quite you talk about 20 years ago, right? As everybody have the hormone replacement, and almost majority, and then stopped for a reason. The estrogen is the cause. That's a very positive correlation of a breast cancer.
Yeah.
And you cannot have estrogen alone. You have to using another hormone to overcoming the estrogen, the side effect of estrogen. But another hormone can cause another metabolic disorders like hypertension, lipid, and also almost like you can cause affecting your metabolism. All depend. They definitely have some effect, but at the same time, there's lots of hidden side effect.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see something that Lynette mentions in the chat. Interesting to know about cycling, because I've learned from a sports psychologist that walking is better. But I understood, Nicolette, that he was cycling because he couldn't walk.
He couldn't walk far, yes.
Yeah, that was the reason. It was not because it's better than other things. Yeah, thank you, Lynette, for mentioning that. I want to involve Mary Jane, because you're very passionate about neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and with all your trainings and things like that. So there's obviously things that you're hearing and that you feel like, wow, this is interesting, or that you have any questions or comments.
Okay, I think primarily to go back to Gillian, when you were introducing yourself and you were introducing the 6 skills that the program revolves around. And I missed one. You had verbal memory, non-verbal memory, short-term memory, working memory, and face recognition. But there was one, and the quote was, remember to remember. Okay. What was that skill?
Perspective memory. Yeah,
okay. Perspective.
And it is the easier way to remember. It is remembering to remember. It means that you need to hold information for a length of time for something that you're going to do in the future.
Yeah.
And it's very important for making appointments and keeping them. And there are lots of little exercises that we give for practicing it. So it might be that people start just by setting a stopwatch and thinking, okay, I'm going to remember to turn that off in 9 minutes, not let it go to 10 minutes, and just little exercises like that would help to click on that ability, to make you focus on that ability to train the brain to actually remember things like that. And in our online course, we ask them in session 12, just email us and tell us which skill you've enjoyed the most. But I'd want you to email on Saturday. So it's just a little practicing that particular skill, because it's an unusual one, but it is a pretty important one, because you do need to be able to recall information and hold it so that you can put it into place later on.
Okay, and then the other aspect that I think is really important, especially for people listening in, is the quality of sleep that we have and the ability for our memory to function well. Maybe Dr. Guan, maybe you could address that, because I think it's important that people understand the role of sleep. You're on mute, by the way. You're on mute.
Oh.
Yeah, quality of sleep, very important, very important. When we're old, we lots of sleep. The one reason is anxiety. We become more anxious. We start worrying things is not really need to be worried. Yeah, because over sensitive and anxious, yes. So the this anxiety as part of the psychology for old people. Yeah, and then there's a very early sign of you lose your, you know, you feel the things you can do before, all of a sudden, you worry you are not able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that you're anxious for things you probably shouldn't. When you're young, you probably don't give, you don't feel as hard need to be worried about it, but now you do. Yeah, if, for example, if you receiving a phone call, you miss a phone call, and when you're young, you probably doesn't really care, and then you can, you know, the people will call you anyway. But now you probably worry about, oh, what's this phone call, and which you think about it and stop your sleep. Yeah, just example. I think there is anxiety is a very early sign of you start losing. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that answer your question, Mary Jane?
Yeah, somewhat. And I guess the relationship I'm thinking about is the fact that we need in sleep, with the quality and the length of time, and depending upon the stage of sleep we're in. But this is where our working memory and short-term memory, where that synchronizes with each other, and for long-term memory. And so it's really critical, I think, that for people to understand that finding ways to improve the quantity and quality of their sleep is going to be very helpful to their brain health.
Mm-hmm.
Your working memory never sleeps. Your working memory never sleeps, because while you're asleep, it's encoding and processing what's happened during the day, and placing it in the cortex, and it's just critical, really. And that's why you can wake up in the middle of the night and suddenly remember the name that you couldn't remember at midday.
Yeah.
You want to ring somebody and tell them, hey, I remember that word, that name.
Yes, thank you, ladies. And I'm going to Lily. I already had you on my list. So Lily is one of the, well, I told you she's from Germany. She's one of the active members on the Wise Moon Society, and she has developed these beautiful creatures, the Gevoelsmünster, and that is more into emotions of people and how to show that. But I can imagine that there's also something related to what is happening today. So share your questions or your comments, Lily. Oh, we cannot hear you. No.
Microphone is not working, probably. Check microphone.
No, we don't hear you.
Might need to be in the chat.
Okay, well, we'll just okay. So Lynette also wanted to not use estrogen replacement, and I've made it into my 70s now. Obviously, it is related to an individual situation and needs. Yeah. Okay, so Lynette, don't worry about how you look. I'm not showing myself because I just come from the shower. So now everybody knows, so you can show yourself. Don't worry about that. You know, we're here all. And of course, it's not going to move anywhere further than YouTube and, you know, all these. No, if you don't want to show yourself, it's really good. So Lily, my computer crashed. I'm sorry. So try to share it in the comments, or otherwise leave me a spoken message on my phone so that I can. You're talking about anxiety. Would you say it's important to learn dealing with emotions? Yeah, that of course. Lily might check. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and good.
Yes,
okay. So I try to repeat. You're talking about anxiety in the night, and I know that people who didn't learn to deal with their feelings, who suppress their feelings, you know, I'm from the after-war generation, and my parents, they just didn't know about their feelings. And I know that old people, the anger comes out without being able to control that. So I think that even anxiety comes out at that age. So I think, I realized with my husband he's getting angry when he doesn't manage to do things. So I think, and I teach that to deal with one's feelings. So I can say, okay, I'm anxious. I realize I'm anxious now, and I can control that, because if I learn to deal with my feelings and I know my brain, I know, okay, I realize anxiety and I say, how does that feel? And then this feeling passes. So I think it could even help in the night where I'm meditating very much, so I sleep really well, or something like that. But I'm interested in feelings. Sorry, I'm talking too much now. What would you say that training to know one's feeling, to analyze them? Most people just don't know they are angry or they are anxious, so they can't deal with their feelings. What would you say?
Yeah, good question. So, who? Gillian, Jian,
No, I can't hear you.
muted.
I'm afraid I haven't got an answer for that, because you know, I have a very little psychology training. Yeah, I have a very little psychology training.
I think you're absolutely right. And Lily, with your background and also, you know, what Mary Jane is doing in her sleeping workshops, it is so important to deal with your emotions, because you can carry it away, you know, and not sleep at all and worry about, you know, we humans, we worry about everything, and most of the things that we worry about never happen. So it is absolutely something important to deal with, and that is something I really want to move to make that okay. So what can we do? Let's make it practical. Jian, you have already, and then Gillian, I really would like to move with you towards the coaches and what they're doing, what kind of mode, what you're looking for. Jian, final. What do we practically need to do to keep those vessels and that whole vascular system healthy and well, as healthy as possible? What do we over 50 aging population, what do we need to do?
As maintain good physical health, which is a good diet and exercise. Actually, I would say before 1050, because we start losing the ability to maintain those good circulation even earlier. Even earlier, someone says 30, someone even say in the 20s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good diet to make sure you control your sugar and your metabolism, everything. Make sure it's not, you know, as normal as possible. Yeah. And then always found that's the 4 things Gillian was talking about, that physical exercise, mental exercise, keep your physical active and mentally active. It's always something for you to managing things, even the household, you know, even the household, that would be quite important and quite good exercise. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mental exercise, good health and mental challenge. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We do add that, and I know somewhere there's a little bit of noise in the background, but you know, if I look at the Wize Move Society, if we look at healthy aging, it's physical, mentally, and emotionally. So that emotional part, Lily's, is as far as we are concerned, very important. So absolutely something on our list. Thank you very much, Gillian. And I want to move to Gillian. Oh no, Juan.
Yes. Gillian.
Thank you, Jian.
Yeah.
And I want to move to Gillian. You know, you have these coaches in New Zealand. Most of your coaches are in New Zealand. You have some in Australia, some in the US. But this is something I think can be done all over the world to keep our brain healthy and fit. So well, can you share a little bit more about the background of the coaches and what kind of work they're doing, because it's mostly in the community?
It's mostly in the community, and essentially they're establishing their own business. But the kinds of people who come to us to be coaches are generally more mature people. So I would say from 50 onwards, and one of our coaches is 70 or just over 70 now. But they generally people who've been working in the community. They may have had a professional background. We have couple of very, very highly qualified, well, a number of very highly qualified coaches, but they're not all highly qualified. But what they do have in common is a passion for giving back to the community, sharing their skills with others. Often they've had a brush with Alzheimer's in the family or brain injury, either for themselves or with somebody that they know, and they've become aware of how important the brain is. So that has driven their interest and their love of learning about the brain, interested in memory. And it's really important that it's not just a kind of a money-making job. They do make money, obviously, because they're running courses that people pay for. But it isn't just, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to help other people and to bring out of other people the skills that we're teaching. And as I say, they are very accessible. They're in everyday language, but they're very much research-based, and the strategies, they can trust that they're valid and that people get excited about working in those groups. Everybody loves the course. They run it's a 4-session course that they're offering. It's called Brainfit for Life, and the people never want it to finish. They want to stay on afterwards because they've made new friends and they've shared their stories. They've had the highs and lows of how many things that they felt that they've achieved or that they've messed up again. But it's worked so well, and the coaches themselves get such a lot back from working with those groups.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes.
So having a professional background or teaching background or coaching of some sort certainly helps with that establishing a rapport with the group, but it isn't essential because they don't all have that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, I love what you mentioned about, you can earn something. It's not, I can imagine that you put your work on first place. That's important, and your passion for that's important. Many people over 50 need to still earn money, so the fact that they still can, I think is for many people is important. Yeah. So the participants, are they people that are already in a situation that their brain that it's getting worse, or that they feel that they need to do something? Or is it, that you go to special, care institutions or homes with really older people? Or do you feel that there's also the over 50 that feel like, I really need to work on my brain because I still need it for many, many years?
Well, the courses were designed for the 50+ age group. That's where we began. But what we've found is that the working environment has become quite stressful over these last 10, 15 years. And so often the people are getting, with some coaches, the participants are getting younger and younger. And one of our coaches is in her early 40s, and that's the kind of group that she's talking to. People who are finding themselves anxious at work, finding young bright young things starting to make jokes about Alzheimer's or something if they've forgotten, and so they've come there because they might have been sitting at a meeting and suddenly can't remember what on earth was just passed. They've lost concentration. So the younger groups are coming in, but essentially it was designed for the 50+, and we've had people up to their 90s in our groups. I would say that 65, 75, that's the group of people who are most interested in buying the courses. Okay. But they haven't had the beginnings of any kind of brain disorder. usually they've come just because they're beginning to worry about a bit of forgetfulness, or they're thinking that they need to sharpen up what they're doing.
Mhm.
And we don't in any way represent ourselves as curing dementia or something like that, because it's just not possible. Some people come with early cognitive impairment, and they'll often come with a partner or a wife or a husband, and they'll take the course together and then do some of the exercises at home.
Mm.
But there's a growing population of people who need these skills, and we would just love to have more coaches internationally.
Mm. Yes, yeah. Well, thank you, and I do agree that the group that is concerned about, or at least, it is some kind of prevention. That you keep your brain healthy and okay. So you already mentioned you do like to expand internationally, and we've already talked about it. We will talk about it more, because this is absolutely something that also for the members of the Wize Society might be very interesting to do, since there are people, who are looking for, what is the next step in my career, or after retirement or whatever. So the people are looking for opportunities, and I think this is absolutely something that not all, but for some of them can be very interesting. So we are going to talk about that more. So if people want to get more information, or you can reach out to Brainfit, but of course Wize Society, most of the people will be able to find us, so that will be great.
Well, I'd be happy to come and talk to Wize, the Wize Move Society. If you have a number of people who are interested, we could have a session online. It would be good. It would be fun.
Absolutely, and they come from all over the globe, so that's good. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
it would be fun.
Yeah, so I'm watching the time. We're already over the hour. Just for everyone, just one short word, sentence, whatever you feel like. What is your learning? Your what do you take out of this session? Who wants to take? Lily. Oh, or Nicolette. You've already unmuted yourself.
I think the thing what Jian told me about the neurons, they're just asleep, so wake them up. That's my takeaway.
Yes.
Yes, the same with me, and the blood circulation and the blood vessels. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Absolutely.
And I'd love to do the course.
Okay.
Gillian,
Oh, well, I'd love to share it
give
with
that
you
on,
too.
because I'm not looking for work, but there will be people who would like to do that. Thank you.
That's why the cognitive function is very recoverable. Yeah, and then also if some people they experiencing some problems, and not all the time, the episodes. It depends on the time how your brain's being fed by the nutrients, and and then also people talking about those dementia have lots of they call it neuron toxic tangles accumulate to the brain. Basically, if you have a poor circulation, and these things are just accumulated. They're like a drainage. They couldn't take out. They couldn't clear it out. Of course, they stay there. Just it's quite simple. I think it's a quite simple hypothesis and describe. It's very easy for everyday people to understand. Once you have a good circulation, your brain cells are working better. And then you're talking about the neuron plasticity, all those things. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know you can talk forever about it, so that was really great. Lynette, anything that you want to share? You're still not showing, so anything that you want to share was very interesting. No, that is Nicolette. Thank you.
I think she shared on chat.
Yeah, I've enjoyed refreshing on all points shared.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Lynette.
Yes.
Okay, so Gillian, any last words from you?
Just, it's been such a delight to be here, and just remember to find your brain challenge for today. Those of you who are just starting your day, think about something that you haven't done before that you're really going to try and do, and get activating those dendrites and moving. It's been such fun to be with you all. lovely. And lovely to hear from Jian again, because she's been away overseas, Australia. So
Okay.
I hope we'll see you. I hope we'll see you all again soon.
A wise
Same
tip.
here.
Yes.
Very, very, very happy to
Thank
meet
you.
you all, and very thankful for the opportunity.
I'm leaving. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And we are aware of time. So thank you all very much. And those who are watching or listening afterwards, you have any questions, let us know. And of course, we love to see you on the Wise Move Society. So join us. You will find all the information on our website. And and we'll see each other next week on our next live conversation. So thank you all, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye, everyone.